Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Travis and welcome back to another video. So today it is pretty early here on Saturday morning, and as you can see the 300 is not only super blue, so hopefully I will get some overlay video for you guys to make it a little bit more bearable, but it's also full of micro bubbles. I actually have an air stone in there, and the reason for that is about 48 hours ago I went ahead and dosed some Chemiclean to the setup because the 40-gallon here had some cyano on the front. I will post some pictures so you guys can see, but it was in the front here where there's not really a lot of flow. Granted, this is powered by one MP10, and it's really good for the NEMs. No issues with that, but because there's quite a bit of coral in the front there, I do get a really low flow areas, and because cyano likes low flow, and yeah, so that's pretty much the only place I get it out of the entire setup is right there in the front of the 40-gallon. I never get it in the 300 except for the overflows, which, by the way, I am working on a solution for that. It's definitely blue, but as you can see, I 3D printed a cover for my overflow here, and then I'm printing the second one. So hopefully the light will not penetrate that, and will minimize the cyano buildup there and the overflow. But other than that, that's really the only two places I ever get it in here. And in the past, I've always kind of manipulated my nutrients to get it down, increase the flow, manual removal, but that's the thing of the past. I'm not doing that anymore. I actually kind of moved over to some Chemiclean. By the way, I am making a mod to fix this saw. You guys will see it here hopefully soon. Follow me on Instagram if you want to see it. But anyways, I have transitioned to Chemiclean. Now, I have used this stuff a couple times on the 300 to get rid of the cyano. And it has worked every single time, and with this situation, or this time around, it has worked again. It's definitely more than I usually have, and so I let it sit. Instead of 24 hours, I let it sit for 48 hours, and it's all gone. I mean, you can't see anything there, and I know it's really blue, but there's nothing there at all, which is really good. So yeah, the cyano is gone, so now it's time to do the 35-gallon water change, which I do every other week. And yeah, so I'm pretty much going to show you guys that process, go through it. I know in the 300 there's a lot of detritus because I haven't really cleaned the 300 display in a while. I'm usually cleaning the frag tanks or taking care of whatever detritus might be in there, just because that's where a lot of the coral's coming in and out, as well as making sure the NEMs and everything are happy in there. When it comes to 300 display, there's a ton of flow because we do have 4 MP40s and 2 of the Apex wave pumps, so there's a ton of flow in this tank. And I will show you guys the wave modes and stuff that I use throughout the day here, but really the detritus is never that big of an issue in this tank because it is bare bottom and there's a ton of flow. So cyano's never a problem. Detritus is, you know, maybe once every couple months I have to come in there and clean it, but outside of that, it pretty much takes care of itself. It's just kind of the other tanks on the setup. So back to the cyano stuff, back to the Chemiclean. Sorry, I'm bouncing around a little bit here, but when it comes to the Chemiclean, you got to make sure you turn the carbon off, which I did. I always turn the UV sterilizer off. One thing I like to do as well is take the drain plug for my skimmer, as you can see there, and I go ahead and unplug that because if not, it's just going to dump over to the Avast-Marine and dump the skimmer off. When it comes to Chemiclean, you really want to make sure you have a lot of air, just because it does pull some of the oxygen out of the tank, and the last thing you want to do is kill your fish or coral. And I don't know, can you see you guys? What's up? Say hello. Everyone thinks it's feeding time, which we'll do in a little bit here. So yeah, I went ahead and pulled the plug. I actually took that opportunity to clean out the skimmer swabby. I have it just kind of chilling in here, and I'll put that back in there afterward. But yeah, so did that. Also, as a safety precaution, I always add a air stone. Let me see, I'm gonna pull it out. And most of the time I just kind of set it here underneath the pump. And I know it's super blue, but, and then it just kind of pushes micro bubbles across the tank. Yeah, that is stupid blue, I apologize. Anyways, yeah, so basically been 48 hours. The Chemiclean has taken care of these cyanobacteria, and at this point it's time to do the water change. So first thing I'm going to do is turn that air stone off. I'm going to let's see, I guess I will go ahead and just start with the 40-gallon. We'll go over here and clean the glass and siphon out any detritus or any kind of remnants of these cyanobacteria. We'll clean that up, you guys will see it. And then we'll move over. I'm pretty set on the low boys. There's not really anything going on. They're pretty full. I probably have to put a couple of the frags back on the rack, so those are good. I don't really have to clean the glass because the amount of snails in there pretty much take care of it. So once we're done with the 40, we'll come over and siphon out a bunch of detritus out of the 300. which really kind of collects at the base of the coral, at the base of the rock structures. around some of these larger corals. It really kind of just chills out around there. You can see here, knocking some of the corals over. So we'll come over and siphon out some of that stuff. Nothing too crazy. And yeah, let me see if there's any more around here. Definitely around this rock structure, I feel. And move some of the corals back in place. Just kind of get bumped around. The fish move it. They're always moving the corals around. So we'll come over here and pull out some of the detritus. Yeah, there's a little bit over here as well. I might come in here and try to scrape out some of this dead coralline. It looks gross. I don't know, maybe not. It's okay. It is what it is. I don't like it, but it's in the back, so I guess we'll deal with it. But yeah, there's some big chunks of detritus here. What I'll do is I'll take my metal tongs and I'll kind of dig it out from underneath the rocks. I don't know if you can see. I'll dig it out from underneath the rock there, pull it forward, and then we'll siphon it up. That way I don't have to be playing around the hose back there. So yeah, all right. So we're gonna do that. And then most likely, if I have enough water, which we'll check our bin, we'll come down and pull out some of the detritus on the sump. Because as you can see, it's kind of dirty in there. So we'll pull out the detritus. And yeah, I guess let's get started. Okay, so first things first, gonna use the glass cleaner, get these micro bubbles and a little bit of algae that's on the glass. To be honest with you guys, I probably clean this tank glass once every 2 or 3 weeks. And when you add the micro bubbles, it makes it look a lot worse. But either way, we're gonna come in here and just clean it up. Shouldn't take too long. I might chat for a little bit, or I might fast forward. I guess we'll find out in production. Alright, now that we've gotten the glass, the next thing we're going to do is come in here and I got a few dead snails. This is what I get for letting somebody pick the snails for me and not actually going in and picking them myself. Pretty much half of them were dead. So lesson learned on that. So I'm just going to pull out some of these shells that really never, these snails never really became anything. Just double check. Yep. Considering the fact they haven't moved in about a month, it's a pretty good chance that they're dead. But we're going to double check anyways, because I don't want to throw a live snail out. So thankfully they were on sale, right? So it wasn't too big of a loss. Yeah, that one's full of worms. Little spaghetti worms. Yeah. I really like these, I think they're snareth snails, if that's how you pronounce it. Jokers that are in the sand, eating all the detritus and stuff. I really don't run them in the 300 because they don't have sand, but in here they seem to do pretty well. If they're alive in the first place, of course. So, as you can see, there's some dead cyano here, nothing too crazy. I'll just come in here and mix it up. When it comes to siphoning, I'll bring the tube down just above the surface and pull out any of that detritus. But yeah, there's a little bit there. Snail's alive. This is a good opportunity to move some of these corals around. So this is a hammer that's not doing the greatest. It really didn't like the flow in the previous tank, so I put it in here where there's kind of the majority of the flow goes through here, but it kind of slows down through here, makes it a little bit easier for it. So it has opened up until just me knocking it recently, but it is coming around. Did lose a couple heads on it, but yeah, should be good. It's kind of out of place in here, but it is what it is. So let's go and move around front and see if there's anything else, and then we'll move on to the 300, and then we'll do our water change. All right, so took care of all the snails and anything that was dead up front here. Mixed around some of the dead cyanobacteria as well, so we'll be able to siphon that out pretty easy during the water change. Now the last thing to do for this tank is to clean the side here where the overflow is, and then also clean the back, which I'll try to get on video. I'll have to figure out how I'm going to angle the camera, but either way, this tank did come with the side overflow, which works pretty good when it comes to plumbing it into 300 because it just drops down directly over, but it's a huge pain when it comes to cleaning. So I'm going to do that real quick and hopefully get you guys some video of the back. But if not, we're going to move on to the 300 and we're going to start that. so that's pretty much it when it comes to cleaning the glass and taking care of the sand bed for the 40 breeder. Now, when we do our water change, I will go through and siphon out any of that dead cyano or any detritus or fish poop or anything like that that might be collecting in the front of the tank. But outside of that, it's a relatively small tank. It's easy maintenance, something that you really do appreciate, especially when you move up to a much larger tank and it takes multiple hours to clean the glass. I don't even bother cleaning the back glass on the 300 anymore. I know I've done it in previous videos. No, that's way too time consuming. So also it messes with my alkalinity. So with that said, the cyano is completely gone. 48 hours with Chemiclean, it's completely gone. Definitely happy about that. It might show its face here within the next 4 or 5 months. It might pop back up. I think I get it like once every 6 months, probably an imbalance with bacteria within the system. But either way, it's not a huge deal, especially with Chemiclean now. So one thing I did want to mention is I like to grow my star polyps on the back glass. I'll have to show you guys once it grows in. I actually just cut it about a week ago. So I let it grow on the back glass to probably just underneath the power head, and then I'll come through with a razor blade and pull it off and then frag it out and put it on the website from there. Just something I've been doing for a while now, just because I used to grow it on sand bed. I used to grow it on rubble rock, and it was just a huge pain. So I figured, hey, I'll just put it near the back glass of the tank, let it grow in, and go from there. So I do have 2 little mini colonies, and then yeah, there's a ton of nems. It's hard to see with the overflow here. A bunch of zoas on the back. Overall, it's a pretty nice tank. Got some hammer coral, torch corals. It's filling in with nems for sure. Only 1 clownfish at the moment. Just got I'm going to be replacing him with a bunch of other black and white ocellaris. The tomato clowns are way too aggressive for me. Not a big fan, so I put them in the 300. So either way, yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the 300 gallon. Give you guys a quick look at what we got going on here. It's kind of green. It looks kind of green. Yeah, a little bit. So we do have our detritus over here that we're going to be pulling out. Like I said, I'm going to use my tongs, come through and pull all this stuff out here. And then we'll do our water change on that. And then we'll come through and move things around. So outside of that, it's pretty good. It's not horribly dirty. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so let's go ahead and start moving the detritus forward. Now, real quick, I went ahead and turned off the power heads just for the sake of trying to keep that stuff together for siphoning purposes. One thing that I did realize, it's so early here on Saturday that the lights are still ramping. So that's probably why the tank looks a little bit more green than usual. This is my fish that I hate. I hate this fish. It's lived in the sump for a while, and then I feel bad, and I take it out of the sump. But she's gonna bite me 1,000 times. Could you not? I just every damn time I'm in here, and probably will draw blood at some point. But we're gonna try to get this detritus out and forward. Move this coral out of the way, and she's just gonna keep biting me. She's a jerk. Try to get some of the bigger chunks out. Probably have to do this a couple times, just because there's a ton of it in here. And of course, detritus is going to collect where the low flow is, and there's no power head directly here. That's why I have the nems here, so they're not getting directly blasted. But unfortunately, that's where the detritus is going to collect as well. Probably move this chalice forward, just for the sake of getting out of the way. Yeah, there's some big chunks here still. And the whole point of this is just to get it loosened up so we can siphon it out. And again, probably have to come through and do it a couple times. You don't want to go back in the sump, do you? You ever heard the saying, don't bite the hand that feeds you? Seriously. Alright, so it's kind of a mess, but we did get a bunch of it forward. I'll move the camera a little bit. Maybe, I guess you guys can still see it. I'm going to move this candy cane out of the way a little bit. Move the detritus, move this LPS out of the way. There's a little starfish there. Another chalice here. It's actually stuck to the bottom of the glass. We're not moving that one now. It's not really where I wanted it, but it is now, I guess. Alright, so we're going to get in here. It's really dug underneath. Try to pull it forward. So you can imagine if I had the power heads going, how awful this would be. Now, one thing I do want to mention, I am going to put the filter socks back on the system for 24 hours after the water change, because it will collect a lot of this detritus, get it out of the tank. Definitely one of the benefits of bare bottom. Get that stuff up out of there. Excuse me, dude. Dead coralline algae. Right. So let's go try this with the other hand. doubt the fish is going to come all the way over here to bite me, but I would not be surprised. So we have our frag rock here, which is full of zoanthids. I kind of wanted to have a little zoa rock colony. Unfortunately, I had 7 or 8 different zoanthids on there, but only one seems to be taking over the whole rock. And it's not the one I want, so that's per usual, I suppose. Get in here, get some of this out. Yeah, we got a lot of this dead coralline. I don't think I can reach. Yeah, it's too far back. Some LPS here. Of course, yeah, I think it's LPS. I don't know. I remember what this is. It's Jason Fox something. I don't think it's LPS. I remember. It's not getting a ton of light. It's not growing very quickly, which is fine. But it's a cool little spot for it. Till the hammer coral or torch coral or a frog spawn falls on it. You see here this little SPS. So I really like this SPS, but the Goniopora, the tentacles here keep sweeping, wiped out the entire colony. So I got this little nub. We'll see what it turns into. So I got that there. Should probably lift this up a little bit. Some of that out of there. I grow a lot of zoids on the bottom glass just because they're good fillers for the bottom of it. Unfortunately, they also collect a lot of detritus. So that's my hosting. That's the clownfish that hosts the Goniopora, but she just lost her. She lost her buddy. I don't know what happened to him. I found him in the power head, even with the nem guards. I think he died beforehand because there's no way he would have got stuck if he didn't. But he was getting kind of skinny. He wasn't eating very often, so maybe he just got sick. Couldn't catch him. But yeah, she hosts that Goni. Try to get her a new partner at some point. Alright, so that's pretty much all the detritus on that side. Yep. Let's go ahead and start siphoning. Alrighty, so the return pump is off, and just going to siphon out as much as we can. Just generally what we can get. Probably not going to do any more digging, just because I really want to hit the 40 gallon and the sump, and I only have 35 gallons to do it. So let's get the majority of the detritus out and go from there. So I'm just going to use a standard tube here. It's going to go to a 55 gallon drum on wheels, which I will show you guys after. So go ahead and bite me, get it out of the way. There you go, good girl. Good jerk. Okay, so I just finished up with the 40 gallon. There really wasn't a ton of stuff to clean, but I got what I could find. As you can see, the tank actually looks kind of normal now. It's got some blue now that the lights are completely ramped. Better late than ever, I guess. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and put the coral back in place, and then we're going to move down to the sump. I'll probably just do a really fast forward video of cleaning that, and we'll go ahead and put the water in it. So let's get started. I want to show you guys the sump real quick. Pretty dirty. A lot of this was over the last 48 hours of having the skimmer open, basically just dumping back into the tank. There was some remnants of gunk inside the cup, so it's in the bottom of the sump now. Good opportunity to go ahead and pull that stuff out. We have about 10 gallons left, And I always like to take out a little less than what I have in my barrel. That way when we top off, if there's extra, I'd rather have extra water in the sump. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so we're gonna do our last 5-gallon bucket, pulling out the return section and some of the detritus here in the refugium. As you can see, I have one of my file fish in there. Really awesome fish. He just likes eating all my zoas, so I'm trying to give my zoas a chance to come back. I actually appreciate him eating a lot of the zoas just because they're starting to really take over some of the acros. So once they get full again, I'll put him back in the main display. He'll take care of the zoas for me, and then we'll just kind of keep this process going. Either way, pretty cool fish. Let me go ahead and do the return section and some of the refugium. Alright, so that's pretty much it when it comes to removing detritus from the sump. Relatively easy. Because the sump is so low, I can't use gravity. So using the shop vac with the 3D printed hose attachment is always the best route. Now, I didn't have one this time around, but I was able to make it work. Either way, it goes to the shop vac hose to a barb, which connects to my tube, which is super easy when it comes to removing detritus. Now, my next water change, because I only got about 60% of the detritus out of this sump, my next one in 2 weeks, I'll come back and focus on the drain section here. A lot of detritus gets in the back of that, and we'll kind of finish up the sump cleaning at that point. So with that said, let's go ahead and move over and start the refill. I have a 35-gallon drum here. I have my heater and my mixing pump in there. Fritz salt 1.027 at the moment because I was a little low in salt on the main display, so I made a little bit more salty on my change water, and I'll be good to go. So that's going to go ahead and dump in to the overflow here, which doesn't mess with the tank here. It just dumps in and then goes directly into the sump. Now during this process, I will have to turn the sump return pump on a couple times because it's going to fill up, of course, with the displays, and eventually it will balance itself out. So once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and put filter socks in here, put my skimmer swabby back together, and we'll come back. The carbon is still relatively new. I just changed it last week, so I am going to run that carbon itself for another 48 hours, and then I will swap it out just to get the rest of the Chemiclean out. But I'll leave the skimmer open for a while, just as it starts to lower its level from the Chemiclean. Then we'll reconnect the drain line and go back to normal skimming. But outside of that, we're good. We'll be right back once this is filled and all set, and I'll show you guys the rest of the setup. All right. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back. So it's been about 24 hours since we did the water change, and I still got quite a few microbubbles. As you can see, the bracing, the shading from the bracing, usually you do not see that unless there's a bunch of microbubbles or something causing the tank to be kind of hazy or cloudy. And yeah, so basically I went ahead and changed out the carbon this morning like I said I would, but the skimmer is still overflowing a little bit, not to the extent that it was yesterday, but there's still a little bit of Chemiclean in the system, and the carbon's going to pull that out. I got the UV sterilizer going, and once the skimmer comes down, all these microbubbles will go away and the tank will fully clear up. But I didn't really want to wait that long to make you guys a video and try to get this content out to you. So we're going to look at the tank briefly, and we'll look at the 40-gallon as well as the low boys. We'll just kind of show you guys some stuff. Now, I will do an in-depth update in the next couple days, just kind of going through the fish and the coral and all the things that are going on. But for now, I at least want to show you guys what's going on. So it's been a while since you guys have seen the main display, for sure. A lot of different fish, which I'll go through in depth, in another video when we have more time, because I think this one's already over 20 minutes, and I don't want to keep you guys for here forever. But there's a lot of new fish. Big Bertha is, she was donated to the Reef Conservation Society. She's going to go to a big 600-gallon tank. So I'll have video and picture of her soon for you guys. But yeah, so the tank has quite a few tangs. I have 3 hippo tangs in there. I went ahead and put a whole bunch of new coral, especially in this middle rock structure. Big B was destroying this tank, so I put basically all this is new coral as of like 5 months ago. And I'm starting to grow stuff on the bottom here, some acros down here, and taking advantage of these frag rocks. I know it's hard to see with all the fish, but I'm growing a lot of acros and stuff, some montes, all that on those frag rocks, just to kind of utilize the space, given that I only have 3 pillars now instead of the 4. But yeah, so Big Bertha's gone. The tank is finally starting to grow because I don't have her destroying the setup, which is really nice. And yeah, so we'll come back to this in a later video this week. And yeah, just more in depth at that point. Moving over here to the 40, you can see the NEMs have definitely filled in. I only have 3 fish in here. I have that one clown. I have a blue chromis and a Melanoris wrasse. I try to keep a wrasse in every one of my tanks just because I really like them. I have a 6 line, and then I have that larger one in the 300. And I really like Melanoris. If you guys remember, I had a Melanoris, the rickety wrasse. I had him forever. He passed away in the 300, I think, a year and a half ago. So I've been trying to get one. Finally got my hands on it. So I have her or him, I think it's a female at this point, in this tank. Pretty cool. No issues with jumping. And then I have a couple in the low boys as well. Again, just like to have a wrasse. And yeah, so the NEMs are definitely filling out. No, they're not for sale at the moment, mainly because they're on the rock. I can't get them off. If I could get them off at some point, I probably will put them up for sale. They're starting to spread over onto the Zoas, which is, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, the tank is rocking. I'm actually in the works of getting 20 of the black and white Ocellaris clowns babies and putting them in here so we can have our sweet little NEM tank or clown tank. But and then that tomato will go into the main display with the other ones. But yeah, so it's just kind of a little different than the 300, and that's really why I wanted to keep it. It's actually quite a bit different. It's primarily soft corals and LPS, and plus with the NEMs. And granted, I do have NEMs in here, and only for the clownfish. Where's she at? The one that always bites me, you guys saw earlier. And then there's like 5 or 6 different clowns in this tank, either way. But so she's the only one that hosts these NEMs. And as I mentioned before, I like to keep them separated from the rock structure. And yeah, so it is what it is. Pretty good. It's really starting to grow and fill in. Finally, it's finally going to grow in. I love you, Big Bertha, but I don't love what you did to my tank. And yes, there are 3 hippo tangs in this tank. Some of you guys are asking about that earlier. Yes, there's 3 of them in here. I did have a 4th, but she kept bumping heads with the big one, so I rehomed her. And moving on to the low boys, this is where I keep the coral that I sell. I have, again, the wrasse in here, as well as I have a Scopus tang. That's pretty much it for fish. The tang takes care of any algae that might pop up on the racks. And then the wrasse, I mean, I just keep them in general. If anything was ever to pop up, they're always good at taking care of it. So yeah, just you know, WYSIWYG section, just corals, lots of acros and stuff growing in here. I don't really have them on rocks. They're just kind of sitting on the bottom, just because that's really all the space that I have. Hammers, torches, bunch of stuff in here. Yeah, it's just kind of growing there. Moving over to this one. This rack's a little bit of algae on there. My Scopus tang in here is a bum. He doesn't really do much. He doesn't do much at all. But yeah, there's a little bit of algae on the rack. But for the entire system, that being pretty much it, I'm not mad about it. Bunch of hammers and torches, or sorry, hammers and frog spawn. That's pretty much. I think there's, I don't know, like 300 heads of it. It's crazy. Yeah, just LPS and stuff growing out and healing. Nothing too crazy. Waiting for the 300 to grow out before I really start slamming a lot of that SPS. But I do have quite a few acros that are growing. Just kind of, you know, curlberries and ATL blue clovers, appleberries, stuff like that, staghorns, all that good stuff. But it's definitely not. It's not a lot of room. I know when I had the tub, it was much better with all the extra room for the corals. But if I'm continuously cutting and continuously selling, it kind of balances itself out, which is nice. So yeah, once this tank fills out and we start getting really close and colonies start touching, like, you know, they're just about to touch. We got the Barney here, and, you know, it kind of gets close to the green slimer. I will trim that up, and then it just goes over, heals, and then goes up on the website. It's a pretty easy process. But yeah, I think that's it. This video is pretty long. I will do an in-depth video for you guys. We'll go through all the fish and the corals and all that good stuff. But for now, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, let me know. And overall, Chemiclean works really well, and I'm going to use it as needed. All right, until next time, peace.